Good afternoon, Seattle. Welcome back to Le Freres, Heureux, a Frasier podcast with your wonderful hosts, the Happy Brothers.
We're happy. And we're brothers.
I'm happy. I'm happy, and I'm Fraser.
And I'm Euan.
But you're not happy.
No, not really.
You miserable git.
No, I'm happy enough.
Enough.
Enough, yeah, I'm fine.
Enough to get you by. Well, the carol bells are ringing.
Yep.
The Christmas lights are up.
It is
We're
Christmas.
well into December.
Mm-hmm.
Have you lost Whamageddon yet?
No, I haven't. I'm still in.
Have you not? Yeah, same.
A lot of my friends have lost.
Yeah.
They're out. Today's the 7th?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
You're giving away. You're dating our
Oh,
recording
no, I'm
sessions.
sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm going to bleep that up. I'm going to double over and be like, it's the first.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're well. It's I'm not feeling very festive this year, I gotta say. I think ever since lockdown, I've just felt time's just an illusion.
It has been a weird couple of years. It's really skewed.
I know, it's
things
bizarre.
Yeah. I suppose I'm feeling fairly festive.
You've been wearing your festive jumpers.
Yeah, wearing Christmas jumpers,
Yeah.
as I tend to do.
Yeah.
Just because they're nice and warm.
They are cozy.
And because it's cold as hell.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's pretty brisk these last few days.
I don't want to put my heating on because it costs too much.
Yeah, it's a joyous time to live in the UK.
Yeah,
or anywhere. To be fair,
yeah.
Everyone's struggling.
Oh boy,
I shouldn't laugh at that.
Isn't that fun?
No.
Okay,
but
Frasier.
we're here to bring you some warmth in the form of our wonderful humor and companionship. Not like in a weird way, just in like a friendly companionship.
Yeah,
we're here to warm up your speakers.
Yep, warmth from the speakers.
Yes. We are on disc 2 of season 10. Where did we leave off? We left off with a sort of middle of the road disc 1.
Yeah.
I think you're feeling that that season 10 is going to be a little bit of a downgrade from the previous seasons.
I definitely, when we first started, I think I probably would have said that season 8 was my least favorite overall.
Yeah.
And then season 9 wound up being kind of worse for me than season 8.
Yeah,
and now that we're getting into season 10, I'm thinking season 10 might be even worse than that.
See, I think it's actually got quite a few good episodes.
It does.
And I think there's a few in it that I remember quite critically, and I remember not liking very much, but actually have quite a lot to love about them. So rewatching them again, I actually quite enjoyed. There's one on this disc in particular that I thought I was going to hate, but actually really quite enjoyed a lot of it. So we'll see when we get to that one.
Definitely interested to see that.
Yeah, we've also got one of the, well, probably I think the biggest like sort of plot, I guess, of the show. Three-parter, all sort of revolving around Niles.
Yeah. The only one that's not to do with Frasier's relationship or Daphne and Niles' relationship.
Yeah. It's sort of, it's a bit out of left field. And I think a lot of people condemn it for that. I've seen a lot of discourse, like Frasier discourse online. Like the few posts that I have seen about it, sort of online, whatever, people are quite critical of it. I think people don't really enjoy it that much because it's not particularly funny.
No,
it takes a very serious tone, which is I like personally.
Yeah,
but I guess it's not for everyone.
It still lends itself to quite a few good jokes, and I think having a slightly more serious backdrop to the humor can kind of elevate it a little bit. Yeah, it's like adding a bit of salt to something sweet. Sometimes it brings it out a bit more.
I don't disagree. Well, we begin with the first of this three-parter. The first part, Bristle While You Work. They all have individual titles, I should mention. It's not like a what was the last?
Well, there was Motherload.
Motherload was part 1 and 2. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. They're back to sort of individually titled, but they're part 1, part 2, part 3. We are on the search for a new housekeeper, in replacement of Daphne. She's still going to be Martin's physical therapist, but Frasier wants someone to do his laundry and make his dinner and generally prove that he is just a lazy ass.
Yeah.
In refusing to do these things himself. What is it? He works like 3 hours a day or something and still needs a housekeeper?
Nothing. And
it's like a status thing, isn't it?
I guess.
Like at that point, it's just like you have to have a housekeeper, otherwise you're seen as doing stuff with your own hands. It's
can't have that.
Bit depressing, but whatever. So we have Anna Gasteyer, guest starring as Trish, whom I think is towards the end of the interviews. They've interviewed quite a few people. We kind of come in like halfway through, and Frasier does not like her at all when she first comes in. She's talking about, is it the Sonics or the Seahawks or something? Talking about sports. So Martin like immediately hits it off with her, and they have that kind of banter between the two of them, and Frasier kind of kicks her out quite quickly, but Martin's very quick to point out that he had a good feeling about Daphne, and look how that turned out. So trust my opinion, she's a good one, let's hire her. Especially when Frasier's not around the house that much. It's Martin that's at home most of the day. So they do hire her, and she turns out to be completely useless. She bails on her first day of work to go out drinking with her friends. Yeah. She's got, a doctor's appointment or something the next day, or a hairdressing appointment. It's something less serious. Yeah. And then she calls in sick the following day, and because Martin doesn't want to lose face, he starts doing all the chores himself. Yeah. Tidying up. And I think that I really like the little scenes between him and Frasier when he's cleaning the house and doing it, and Frasier's like commenting on the work. doesn't realize that it's Martin doing it. Yeah. I really like those little scenes, just Martin getting really worked up. It's like when he's waxed the floor and Frasier
gets the
takes
floor
off his raincoat and everything. Yeah. And it kind of, I don't know, I guess it probably gave him a bit of an appreciation for what Daphne did, and what, I don't know how many other housekeepers they've had in between Daphne, not many. But just people have done around the house when he's sitting watching TV. Yeah. Which I guess is nice. But yeah, when Trish eventually is found out, she comes by to pick up her paycheck. While Martin
Absolute chance.
I know, that's ridiculous. Like, imagine the balls you must have to do no work for a week and then come in and demand a paycheck. That's like, I almost admire it. Yeah. Like, that's some serious...
It's the way that she words it as well. She says, like, oh, you still owe me for the days I was supposed to be working last week. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, chancer's a good word for that. Yeah, Martin's pretending to talk to her while she's in the bathroom, upset at what Frasier said. There's this little farce when she walks in the door and Frasier realizes that she's not there. I like Martin's little final attempt, his Hail Mary. And he's like, you didn't tell me you had a sister.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it doesn't work out. And that is that. They don't really get another housekeeper, I don't think. I'm trying to think.
No, not that I can think of.
Because we had Jennifer Coolidge who came in.
And she was physical therapist.
Who else did we have? Yeah, I'm sure there's another one. I'm sure there's at least another one.
There's when is it? There's an episode in the final season when they're talking about it, because Daphne and Niles are hiring a nanny and Frasier's hiring a housekeeper, and also someone's hiring a stripper for some reason.
Yes. And there's kind of that, farce in between all of them.
And it's like everyone's confusing everyone else. And but it's not really elaborated on beyond the fact that everyone's sort of confusing each other.
Yeah. There's the butler as well. What's his name?
Oh, Ferguson.
Yeah. But I guess he's kind of, well, I mean, he was a housekeeper, I guess.
Yeah.
Just a different name.
But as well, Daphne was there as well.
That's true.
Frasier was just being greedy.
He was, just wanted a butler. Again, status.
Yeah.
He wants that status.
Absolutely does not need a butler.
No, not at all.
Well, does anybody need a butler, really?
I guess. I mean, I can see some arguments for people having like a housekeeper.
Yeah.
And having, like, if you've got a bigger house and you can't do it all yourself, or you've got like kids and you've got someone to look after the kids and help with the housework and stuff, I can see there are arguments for it.
Yeah.
Frasier doesn't have any justification for it. So yeah, that's the one plot. And then in the background during this episode, and it's very much in the background, it does not really lend itself to much sincerity. Yeah. We don't really give it much thought. It's just a little side plot with Niles, and he's got a bit of a toothache, and he's kind of moaning to Roz about it when they meet in Cafe Nervosa, and I can't remember how it comes up, but he basically says that it could be referred pain from something else wrong with him. And they kind of say, the chances of that are minimal, 1 in a million. And Niles starts to beat those odds.
Yeah.
He wins a fanny pack with his bottled water. He beats Martin's card game.
Yeah.
He wins another fanny pack. His card gets hit by lightning. And then there's the line when someone comes into the cafe and says Niles, and he turns thinking it's him, and then it's not. It's another couple that are also called Niles and Daphne. Yeah. So he starts to beat all these odds, and Roz, kind of the voice of reason when he meets her again, says like, well, look, if you're really worried about it, go to the doctor, get checked out, make sure there's nothing wrong. So the final scene of the episode, after we've had all this kind of goofiness with Trish and Martin, we see Niles in the doctor's office, and the doctor comes in, and he's kind of very flippant about it. He's like, well, let me have it. Is it my heart after all? And the doctor kind of gets very solemn and says, yes, it is. We need to book you into the hospital. And Niles kind of tries to brush it off and say, oh, well, I can get it checked in, whatever. And then the final line, like, absolutely hits you like a ton of bricks. The doctor turns to him and says, Niles, you have to go right now.
Yeah.
And it's so like sincere, and so, like, you realize immediately what's happening, and it's like, oh my god,
yeah,
he's not okay. And it ends on that note. The credit sequence kind of gives a little bit of levity again. He wins another fanny pack. Or he's just terrified of the bottle of water.
Oh, that's true. The doctor tries to hand him a bottle of water.
Yeah,
he panics.
But yeah, it very much, that ending is like so notable for just being, whoa, okay, you need to take a second and realize what's going on.
Yeah. I can see why people would criticize it for being too sudden, because it does come quite out of left field.
Yeah.
It's like played very humorously. Like he suggests early on, like, oh, it could be a problem with my heart, but the odds are 1 in 10,000 or 1 in a million or whatever. And then it's just played humorously from then on until the end. But I suppose I would argue that's part of the point.
That's kind of what I wrote down. Yeah,
that it's supposed to be this like sudden, like he's shocked.
Yeah,
that it's supposed to be. It makes me think of. I was critical, along with a lot of people, at how I Met Your Mother ended.
Yes,
when they spend however long the show is, 8 or 9 seasons or however long.
Yeah,
setting up. Oh, we're going to meet Ted's love interest, who turns out to be the mother of his children, and then in the very last episode, once they finally meet, they just go, and then they got married, and then they had kids, and then she got cancer and died.
Yeah.
And everyone criticized it for being really sudden, and so did I, but then people have pointed out that like maybe that's kind of intentional, that like he spent so long waiting for it, and then to have it taken away from him so quickly, you know.
Well, I kind of like, that's life.
Yeah.
That's how these things happen. You know, there's no sort of dramatic build up, several years waiting to find out about something. Like
there's no foreshadowing in real life.
Exactly, there's no foreshadowing. It's very much like, you don't feel well, you go to the doctor, and you get some really bad news one day, and it's devastating. So like I think it's quite realistic how it's portrayed in the show. Because that is very much how something like that would probably go, unless you had like a pre-existing condition, I guess. But yeah, so you're not wrong. I see the criticisms. I get it. I see why people aren't happy about it, but I disagree. I think it's really, I love when shows do stuff like that. I love when they throw you a total curveball. Even if the like subsequent plot doesn't pay off, I love when we get something like that. You've got a humorous episode, you've got something completely out of line, and then suddenly the last line of the show is your dad's died or something horrible.
Yeah.
It's really like, oh my god, it's
going back to How I Met Your Mother.
Well, that happens in How I Met Your Mother, doesn't it?
They just, they pull that. And it works. It's so much more impactful.
It is, because you're just
when it's
taken off guard.
Field,
if you're led to build up that something's going to happen, when it does, you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, I knew that was going to happen, so I was preparing myself for it. And yeah, that's part one. I think we should rank them each individually.
Yeah, I have ranked them each individually.
Because I think that each one is very distinct as well, even though they have this overarching plot. They are very distinct in their plots and how they tell the story. What did you think of the first one?
I don't particularly like it. I gave it a 2.
Okay.
I like the jokes about Niles beating the odds constantly, and the joke like, oh, my car's been struck by lightning, and him winning the fanny packs, and the scene when he goes to Cafe Nervosa after he started freaking out, and Roz is there, and he's like looking kind of not disheveled, but he's kind of got his big long raincoat on, and he's like panicked sitting, and he grabs the waiter's arm and asks for bottled water. It's very funny. Like that I really like, but then the rest of the episode I just don't enjoy.
That's fair.
Like the plot with Trish, I just don't care for. I think she's just an annoying character.
She is.
It's a shame, because I do like the actress. I can never remember her name.
Anna Gasteyer.
She's really good in it. She was in Saturday Night Live quite a lot. She was kind of one of the cast members on SNL around this time. And she's been in lots of other things with like various other SNL cast members that have been very good, and she's a good actress and she's a funny person.
Yeah.
But I think here we don't really get an opportunity for her to show that. The character's very kind of one note and just a bit rubbish and annoying.
Yeah, she's very much overshadowed by the fact that you hate her so much as a character.
She's just an inconvenience.
Yeah.
It's more about her absence than it is actually about her being there.
Yeah.
And that just means that it all kind of falls flat.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. So I give it a 2. It's fine.
I was a little bit more kind than you. I gave it a 3.
Yeah.
I gave it 3 cups. I like the Niles and Roz stuff. I love Niles and Roz as a pairing.
Yeah.
Just whenever they're together, they always get great conversations. Their chemistry is always great. And yeah, the stuff with Niles beating the odds is very funny. But I like the stuff with Frasier and Martin as well. So once you take out Trish from Trish's plot, we're left with Martin cleaning the house and everything, and I quite enjoy those little scenes. I think they're very funny. So yeah, it's not great. I think it's, spoiler, I think it's the weakest of the 3, the 3-parter, but I still think it's decent. I think it's still an enjoyable episode. Yeah, good.
Grand.
You'll need to keep me right for any guest callers. I think they're few and far between.
There aren't many, if any. Well, there is one. I think it's just the one. There's one in not the next in the third episode. In the third part of our little trilogy.
Okay.
I think that's it for the disc.
That's fine. We will move on then to Rooms with a View, part 2 of our little sub-series.
Yeah.
So it cuts straight to Niles has been taken into hospital. They've diagnosed what's wrong with him. He's got a blockage or something in his heart. I can't remember exactly what it is they say. And he needs to be taken in for surgery. It's all very kind of, you can tell that they're all masking how they really feel in the first sort of 5-10 minutes of the episode.
Yeah.
Niles is in his bed. Everyone's coming in and checking in on him. Roz comes by, brings flowers. Martin is very much just zoned out completely. He's just on autopilot, looking after his son. He doesn't want to let him show how scared he really is.
Yeah.
And to be fair to all of them, I think all the actors in this section do such a good job of showing that.
Yeah.
This sort of, they are really terrified, but they're trying not to show it. I think they'll do a really great job. And Niles he's kind of the comedic relief of this section, I would say.
Yeah.
A little bit.
That's what I would say as well. It's a lot of the other characters are taking it all very seriously. A lot of the humor is actually coming from Niles's lines, kind of, and how Niles is reacting to the situation rather than everyone else. No one else is cracking any jokes.
Yeah. He gets a phone call from Maris as well to wish him well, and he gets the morphine while he's
calls the nurse over and is like mouthing, give me the drugs, and that's a really funny line.
Which are it just has this total undertone of like, you're very invested in what's going on. It's easy to miss the humor. I feel. I don't mean that in a bad way. That's not a criticism. I just think you need to really, like, you're so involved in what's going on that it's easy to miss little bits and pieces of like of lines that shine through the darkness. That sounds very like poetic, but you know what I'm trying to say. And I like the tone. I like when we get a more serious episode. I like when the humor takes a bit of a backbench, as long as the serious note hits. And I think in this episode it really does. We're sort of, Niles is wheeled off maybe halfway through the episode, give or take. Maybe a little bit sooner than halfway. I would say
sooner than that, maybe. Oh, excuse me, maybe about 5 minutes in.
Yeah. So he's wheeled off to surgery, and the episode kind of focuses on everyone else's reaction. Daphne is dealing quite well. Martin is dealing quite well. Frasier and Roz are Roz is kind of less invested in everyone else, I think. Yep. She's kind of just in disbelief that Niles would be in a situation like this.
Yeah.
And Frasier's kind of dug so deep into the medical side of things. He's laid out what's going to happen in the surgery that he's kind of following along.
Yeah.
And that's keeping him going. And sort of interspersed through all these little bits, we get some nice little flashbacks as well.
Yeah.
The rooms with the view, the rooms with the flashbacks, I guess, would be a better title for the episode.
Yeah.
It's not really.
No.
But we get, I think they lend to some really, really powerful scenes.
They do. Some of them are very, very much kind of just there for humor, like seeing Niles with a broken leg.
Yeah.
Or like Frasier meeting Niles for the first time after he's been born and immediately saying that he doesn't like him.
I don't like him.
But like, we get the shot where there's not even any dialogue from John Mahoney, where it's the doctor puts up x-rays and says like, there's something troubling on your wife's x-ray, and that's it. And it's just kind of it's like the intro to Up. Famously very sad, where there's not really an awful lot of dialogue. It's just kind of like cutting through the lives of the people and all of the various events.
The one of them that I really like is Roz's flashback. When Martin's trying to get a chocolate bar, and Roz goes up to the front desk to get some change for the machine, and she flashes back to when Alice was still a baby, and kind of comes rushing into the room and says, "Oh, there's something wrong. Her cheeks are all flushed. It might be scarlet fever or something." And she's panicking and doesn't know what to do. And the front desk nurse is like, "Is this your first kid?" Yeah, it's fine. It's lipstick or something, isn't
got
it?
Lipstick on her cheek.
On her cheek. So it's obviously nothing serious, and it's something the nurse has seen before, because young parents would probably be panicking and something like that. And she says, like, I can't remember what her name is. That's really bad.
Colleen.
That's defeating the whole purpose.
Yeah.
But it says like, "Oh, Colleen, I won't forget that name. Thank you so much," and walks off. And then when she goes up to get the change, it's Colleen at the front desk as well. And Colleen kind of hints to her, like, oh, have we met before? And Ross says, no, I don't think so. And there's something about that that's really, really sad.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's like the fact that at the time it was so important.
Mm-hmm.
Like getting Alice well and figuring out what was wrong with her. It was like the most important thing in the world. And now it's like a distant memory.
Yeah.
And there's just something really like existential about that scene.
Yeah.
I can't really describe it in words, but
the fact that Colleen recognizes Roz and not the other way around.
Yeah.
It definitely says something about, like, you know, people working in healthcare and the things that they see are going to stick with them. Even like these like minor things.
I mean, that's something they would probably go home and laugh about later on. Mm-hmm. But if you remember it, it's positive. Mm-hmm. So we have all these great little flashbacks, these nice little scenes, and then we're again met with a very sort of I'm shaking my hands here. What's the word for it?
I don't know.
Just a
like a
very sudden,
shocking scene.
Yeah, when Martin they're all arguing about Martin trying to get this chocolate bar, and Daphne is sick of it and comes over and throws the fire extinguisher through the front of the vending machine. And it's just obviously devastated. Like, she just can't hold it in anymore. I think that's another really great scene. She just completely collapses, not knowing what to do, and she snaps at Frasier because he's kind of keeping it together by going through the whereabouts Niles is in his surgery right now. She's like, he's not a patient. He's not lines on a bit of paper. He's my husband, and there's nothing I can do for him right now. It's like, yeah, man, like that would be so terrifying. I don't know, not really been in that situation. I guess maybe a little bit, but it's not something I really experienced as an adult.
Yeah.
Just having someone so close to you be in that position and being completely helpless.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jane Leeves just does a great job at
Jane Leeves' performance is really good in this. It's so... It's like, it's the little things, and then it just, when it suddenly bubbles out and you really believe that she's like so devastated and scared.
Mm-hmm. Scared. Yeah.
And it works really well.
Yeah. But thankfully, we're kind of put out of our misery, I guess, quite quickly after that. Mm-hmm. The doctor or nurse comes through and says that the surgery was a success, and they get in to see him, and we get a nice little scene of Daphne going in and kissing Niles awake. Or he doesn't wake up, does he? She just goes and gives him a kiss and sort of says, I'll be here when you wake up.
Yeah.
And then as she walks through the corridors, we get, rather than a flashback, we get a flash forward of them welcoming their second child.
Yeah.
Which is actually a little bit of a continuity error if you think about it too much. Or it's supposedly it is.
Yeah. I was thinking it was, but I always assume that it must be their third child. Because I was thinking about it this time. They have an old, like a kind of toddler who is a girl, maybe 2 or 3 years old.
We don't know that she's a girl.
Oh, that's true.
To be fair.
That could be David. Exactly.
Because she only thing that gives away that it's a girl is that she's in pigtails.
Yeah.
But parents put little boys with long hair in pigtails all the time.
Yeah.
But everyone always calls that like a continuity error.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's not
really.
I just assume that it may well just be that after David, they had a daughter, and then the baby's the third daughter.
Yeah, could be.
The third child, who's like the second daughter.
Could be.
Or more than that. It's just that they had more than 2 children.
Yeah.
You know?
But I kind of like that. I think that's maybe... Is that the first time we've ever had a flash forward in the show?
Yeah. It's not something that we get a lot of. I don't even know if we get another one.
Maybe not.
That's something that I do like people doing, and especially kind of in a sitcom where it's a sort of kind of ensemble, like you get all the different characters, and then when they're wrapping up and you get the big conclusion, it's really nice seeing like what they are doing afterwards.
Yeah.
Obviously this isn't the end of the show quite yet, but it's nice seeing that.
It's nice to see, and I think it's a nice note to end the episode on as well. It's kind of this like hopeful like things are going to be okay eventually, you know?
Yeah.
Which is just, it's just a nice note to end on, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I like this episode a lot more than the first one.
I do as well, yeah.
How much more?
So I give it a 4.
4, okay.
Yeah, I couldn't quite give it a 5. I don't know what it is that would need to bring it up to a 5. I just instinctively went for a 4.
Yeah, I went for a 4 as well. My criticism is kind of the lack of balance with the comedy in it.
Yeah.
And it's not a criticism of the lack of comedy.
Yeah.
It's more the balance of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm probably not making much sense. But the episode takes a more serious tone.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I like that. I have nothing against that. There are still some jokes thrown in, but I think they could have, I don't want to say like spaced out more, but just kind of done a bit more with the humor in the episode.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like quite up to par with even like a standard episode in terms of the humor. So it's not like there isn't humor in it. It's that the humor isn't that great.
Yeah.
And I don't think it balances as well against how good the rest of the episode is. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that helps you pinpoint what.
No, maybe a little bit. Yeah, kind of. I would have preferred if some of the humor was a little bit more relating to the situation that they were in, and not just the kind of little quippy one-liners that we get that aren't really super interesting. You know, Martin complaining about the magazines in the waiting room. Yeah. It's like, well, it's not very funny. It's kind of pretty standard sort of stock humor where you could have done something that's a little more interesting about like the setting that they're in. But yeah, it's fine overall.
Yeah,
it's still a strong episode.
I think it's very strong. I think it doesn't annoy me, but it makes me sad that there's a lot of people who don't like it because of the more serious nature of it.
Yeah,
I think it's a shame. You're missing out on a good episode.
Definitely.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes actually is the scene where Niles is getting wheeled off, and just everyone's interaction with him. Martin saying "I love you," Niles saying "good luck," Frasier saying "good luck," and then Niles and Daphne chatting, him repeating her name because he wants to say it as much as he can. And it's just like, oh man, it hits you right here. I'm pointing at my chest right now. Yeah, it really kind of gets you.
Yeah, I think something actually that we didn't mention about a scene at the very end of Bristle While You Work is when Niles is leaving to go to the doctor. And he's like, as he's walking out, you hear his internal monologue, and he's talking to Daphne and kind of says, like, after years of kind of wasted time, I didn't have the courage to tell her that I loved her. Now we're finally married, and a couple of months into our marriage, I might die. Yeah. And that obviously scares him. And then that's carried on when he kind of keeps saying her name. I want to say Daphne as many times as I can before I go under. And it's just, it's a little thing. It's not super overplayed.
No,
it's very
not
subtle.
Yeah.
And it works very well and can make you very emotional.
Yeah. Well, it's we've been watching for 10 seasons.
Yep.
At this point, but imagine people who are watching it live as it came out. You've been watching for 10 years.
Yeah.
You've been watching Niles and Daphne get together, and then to have something like this, like I think it'd be really tough to watch.
Yeah.
I don't remember what my feelings were the first time I watched this episode.
No.
But even rewatching it, I'm like, yeah, it really hits you. So
definitely.
Yeah. We get a slightly cheerier third part.
We do. Before we get onto the third part.
Oh.
There are a couple of guest stars. Well, there's one who's not really a guest star, but the actor that plays young Frasier in one of the scenes when Niles has broken his leg is an actor called Kendall Schmidt, who it's not someone I recognized, but according to IMDb, he's fairly well known. If one of the minor characters has like a headshot on IMDb, I assume that means that they have been in enough other things that they're worth mentioning.
Okay.
So I looked him up to see what else he was in. He was in Big Time Rush, which was a Nickelodeon show. It was after my time, but it's definitely something that I have heard of. I'm not really sure. And then he's been in other various things since then. Mm-hmm. And also the actor that plays Doctor something or other, I can't remember the name of the doctor, Niles' surgeon, is played by Daniel Davis, who I always really like. I always like seeing him in this. He was in The Nanny with Fran Drescher. He played the butler who was called Niles.
How about that?
Yeah. And there was an arc on The Nanny where Niles had to get heart bypass surgery. And now he's playing the doctor who's giving heart bypass surgery to another character called Niles.
How about that?
Funny. But yeah, he was in Star Trek Next Generation. He played Professor Moriarty in Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh yeah, is there not an episode where they fight Sherlock Holmes or something?
They go into the holodeck, like they're in this like kind of virtual reality, and two of the characters, Data and Geordi, are Holmes and Watson,
right? And
they create an AI Professor Moriarty to try to foil, and then he becomes sentient and tries to take over the ship, and it's a whole thing. And he's played by Daniel Davis, and he's really good. Yeah. He's a great actor. He was in other things. He was in like Hunt for Red October, and I'm just like, he was virtual Moriarty. Yeah, but he's really good, and I always like seeing him in this little guest spot.
He is good, actually. The few lines that he gets are very funny. Cutting Frasier down to size.
Yeah, we always love to see it.
Yeah.
And there's also, I got stuck down a rabbit hole of researching it because they're talking about chocolate bars.
Yes.
And they start talking about marathon bars.
Yes.
And I was really interested to see if that was the same thing as it was in the UK, because in the UK, marathon is what Snickers used to be called.
Yeah.
But that's not what it was. In the US, marathons were a different thing, which is basically the same as what we call curly whirlies.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And people in America aren't going to believe that that's what we called marathon bars, that we call them curly whirlies. But yeah, and they were discontinued in the States in 1981.
Oh.
But they're still a thing here, but they're called curly whirlies.
I love a curly whirly.
Yeah.
At Christmas time. You get them in the selection box.
You do get them in the Christmas selection boxes. I'm not big on a curly whirly. I don't really like anything that's like hard caramel. It's like chewy.
I like a chewy caramel.
Don't really like it.
That's why my teeth are wrecked.
Yeah, I'm not into a curly whirly. But yeah, there you go. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, no, I like hearing the history of chocolate bars.
Yeah. I got stuck and I started reading about, like, do you know that Snickers are named after a horse?
I did not know that. No.
The Mars family's favorite pet horse was called Snickers, and that's what the chocolate bar is named after.
That's cute.
And they were always called Snickers in the States, whereas here they were called Marathon, and they were renamed Snickers in the 90s.
I can't eat Snickers.
You can't.
I've never known the pleasure of a Snickers.
Stupid peanut allergy.
Yeah.
Suck it. I love a Snickers.
Well, I love a curly whirly, so...
Do you know, now, I'm sorry, another fact about Snickers.
How many has he got?
Just one more. Do you know why they weren't called Snickers originally in the UK?
I don't know.
It's because they were worried because it sounds too much like knickers.
Okay.
Which is funny.
I guess. Yeah.
It's a stupid thing, but like, yeah, it's British slang. You wouldn't get that anywhere else.
Well, knickers, you would say... they say something else in America, I guess.
They would say something else that sounds like that. Yeah, I should definitely point out that I'm not saying that word. It's Knickers. Yeah. As in underpants.
Underpants.
Yeah, but that's why they weren't called Snickers here.
Okay.
It sounds too similar to that.
Well, there you go. Some chocolate facts for you on this.
Chocolate facts.
This fine Thursday. See, that's how you date it.
Yeah.
You pretend that it's the day when the episode comes out. Right.
Okay, sorry.
So no more chocolate facts.
Now I'm done. No more chocolate facts.
Cool.
No more guest stars.
Cool.
We can move on to the next episode.
Don't Go Breaking My Heart. Part 3 of the little trilogy. It's been, about a week or so since Niles got his surgery, a couple of weeks. He's in recovery. They're having a party to celebrate, his return to normality, I guess.
Yeah.
Sort of the all clear that he's doing okay. And he's got a different approach to life. He kind of wants to, like say, he wants to stop and smell the flowers and just kind of take every day as a gift, which I think, as Martin points out later on in the episode, it's what a lot of people who have survived sort of life-threatening conditions go through. That they kind of, once, if they recover, it's very much a blessing that they did, and they treat it as such. So this is what Niles is going through, and it eventually begins to grate on everyone else around him.
Yeah.
Frasier's, well, it turns out Frasier's made a deal with God, like like Kate Bush.
Like Kate Bush.
And in exchange for not, what is it he specifically says? Not criticizing his brother, not being a better sibling,
I think
basically.
He just don't take him for granted.
Yeah.
And
basically stop arguing with him.
Yeah.
In exchange for that, will God make Niles better? So Frasier's kind of finding it very difficult not to snap at Niles, especially when he's in his current state and he's being very irritating. He makes comments about there's an opera recording that Niles hates and Frasier loves. What else is there? Niles...
He keeps calling into Frasier's show.
He keeps calling to the show. He doesn't want to go to the wine club. Oh,
yeah,
no, is it wine club?
He doesn't
squash. Sorry, squash. He doesn't want to go back to squash. So it's just all these little things kind of building up. Daphne, Niles doesn't want to go back to having sex quite yet. He's not quite ready. So that's kind of irritating Daphne a little bit. Martin, they eventually have a bit of a one-to-one when Niles says that his surgery was more of a risk of life than than what Martin went through. I love the little line where he's like, well, let's compare, shall we? I got shot and you ate a bunch of fancy cheese. And then they have what is it? It's like, well, you might have had a brush with death, but I kissed him. Or I kissed death on the mouth.
It's like they keep escalating. It's like I shook his hand. Oh, I kissed him on the cheek. Well, I kissed him on the mouth. Also, death is a girl.
Yeah. I love that little interaction. Yeah. But yeah, eventually it kind of all concludes very nicely. Frasier speaks with Daphne, who it turns out also made a bargain with God of being more generous to charity in exchange for helping Niles, which he believes supersedes his bargain. Therefore, he ignores it completely.
Just goes back on it instantly.
So goes to start an argument with Niles. It doesn't end up happening, but he goes to start it anyway. Martin gets his... No, they have a nice conversation after their little argument.
Yep.
Martin kind of explains what he went through, and Niles relates to that, and he kind of says like, you need to just kind of get back to it, get back to normal. Which Niles takes in his strides and goes back to Daphne, who gets what she wanted. Yeah, dressed up as a sexy nurse.
Yep.
And yeah, we all get a happy ending for Niles.
Happy ending. That's not funny.
I didn't mean that.
I think it's a good episode. Right?
It is.
I like the ending with Martin and Niles talking.
Yeah, I was going to say that's definitely the standout of this episode, I think.
And him kind of just saying like the way that Martin just says like you're scared, just very bluntly tells him like that. I think it's just because you're scared that you're not doing these things, and Niles keeps saying, "Oh, it's because I'm trying to embrace life and live life to the fullest." And he says, "Like, well, you're not doing anything. You're sitting on your arse watching soap operas,
eating rye flats.
You know, like you're not eating delicious food, and you're not playing squash. You're not having sex with your wife. Like, you're not doing anything fun. You're just, scared to go back to your life." And he points that out, and it's a nice, sweet little moment.
I think we've even said this before, is that we really don't get that many like bonding scenes between Niles and Martin. So when we do get them, they're really quite nice.
Yeah.
They're nice to watch. And more impactful, I guess, a little bit. Not so much recently, but there's a lot more with Frasier and Martin.
Yeah.
Where they're coming together late at night, or when they're having getting advice from one another, but that happens so often that it's still nice, but it's not quite as impactful as when we get it with Niles.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, right, you might end up hating me for this or not, but watching this episode, I actually quite like Gertrude in this episode. I have to say.
Yeah, she's not terrible. I think it's... There are definitely a few episodes where I don't dislike her as much as I do on average.
Yeah.
And this is one of them.
Yeah. I think that's fair. She is very sweet towards Niles. She seems genuinely quite caring towards him.
Mm-hmm.
She selfishly kind of says like, "Oh yes, I gave up my downstairs guest bed to sleep on the couch."
Mm-hmm.
But I really like that little interaction because it gets the little lines that Daphne gets. Yeah. She says like, "You've got a nice big comfortable bed back in Manchester."
Yeah.
And I really like those little scenes. And then at the end, when she gives the advice to Daphne about kind of, she needs to help Niles out as well. Like he's probably not feeling very attractive at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Help him with that, help him along his way. And I kind of like those little scenes. I think, she's not quite her usual annoying self.
Yeah. I really like the line when she says, like, you've got to use your feminine wiles and tell your brother Billy landed Kevin.
Yeah.
I love that.
Of course, sharing a jail cell probably helped.
It's a shame that we never really see Billy.
We don't
feel
see
like
any of them. Yeah.
I suppose he's one of those characters where they kind of just like, he's sort of just kind of the punching bag. They just sort of make gay jokes about him.
I know.
And then
they're all in good taste, I think.
They're not
really,
none of them
like,
are
insulting.
Too terrible.
But yeah, I like the Moon family jokes.
Yeah,
despite the few that haven't aged particularly well,
mm-hmm.
There's a lot of them that are quite funny. So this one again, kind of, I rank it up there with Rooms with a View. I gave it a 4 as well.
I didn't.
No.
I think it's another one of those episodes that I get a bit frustrated that the focus is so strongly on Frasier. Where we are coming off of this, it is really more about Niles.
Mm-hmm.
Like this whole arc is about Niles' health, and it's about how he's being scared and about how he's trying to like ease himself back into life because he's scared. And yet so much of the focus is like Frasier's annoyed at Niles because he's being annoying. And it's like, well, I wish there was more of a focus on Niles. So it's a 2. I don't know if I'm going to go for a 2 or a 3. It sits somewhere around the middle. I'll probably give it a 3 because I don't think it's as bad as Bristle While You Work.
Okay.
I don't think it would be fair for me to give it as the same as Bristle While You Work. So I'm going to give it a 3.
So I'll counter your point of annoyance, right? Normally, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
When we get a plot about something, we're often seeing it from Frasier's point of view, and it often is very annoying.
Yeah.
Because we don't really care. We want to know what was going on. However, I think here we get a good balance of Niles' focus.
Mm-hmm.
We even get scenes where he's chatting with Daphne and Cafe Nervosa, and then it switches to Frasier and Roz. We get the scene with him and Martin, the party at the start.
Yeah.
And with Daphne again at the end. So I think we get enough Niles in this to justify it. And the fact that we get scenes that focus on Frasier, we get some really funny jokes when Niles is phoning in to the radio show.
Yeah.
And his kind of flippant comments as he's walking past, like in Cafe Nervosa when they're talking about the opera, and he kind of comes in and says like, "Oh, what tone-deaf prankster gives you this?" Mm-hmm. And it's like, I think it works with him being the kind of passerby. He's the focus of the story, but we're focusing on how what he's doing is affecting other people.
Mm.
So I don't know if that changes your mind or not, but I quite like that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. That's fair enough.
It wouldn't be the same. Like if we were focusing on Niles, him phoning into Frasier's show wouldn't be as funny.
No,
I don't think.
That's definitely true.
Yeah. And things like that. So I think it's justified, personally. I that doesn't bother me too much, at least in this instance.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. So 3.
A 3. I'd give it a 3.
Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of Niles calling into Frasier's show,
yes,
there is a guest caller. This is, I think, the only one on the disc. Grant, who is talking about how his grandmother died and he's worried that she might not have realized before she died how much he loved her or something. He wishes he told her he loved her before she died or something like that. Who's voiced by John Turturro, who is a pretty well-known actor.
Yeah.
He was in the
Big
new...
Lebowski.
Yeah. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou as well.
Yeah.
Another Coen brother one. He was in the new Batman film. He was Falcone.
Oh,
crime
so
boss.
he was. Yeah, so he was.
He's in Severance, the new TV series that's coming out with Adam Scott.
Is that Adam Scott? Yeah.
I've never seen it. I didn't know before today what it's actually about. I looked up.
It's one of the Apple shows. Nobody has Apple TV.
No, I've heard people saying that it's really good, but I'm probably not going to watch it. Yeah, he was in, and Barton Fink is something he was quite well known for. He was Barton Fink.
He was.
I don't know what
Barton Fink.
I don't know what Barton Fink is.
He was Mr. Fink.
He was Mr. Fink. I always confuse Barton Fink with a Eraserhead because I feel like they have really similar. Like
what?
Like the posters are really similar. It's just like their faces and they look kind of similar. I don't know. So I always confuse them in my head for some reason. Okay. Yeah, there you go.
John Turturro. Cool. That's a pretty decent one to have as your sole guest star for this disc.
Yeah, pretty well known guy.
Could be worse. Cool. Right. Well, that is Niles' little scare out of the way. It's not really mentioned.
Never to be brought up again, ever.
But it has a pretty big impact in these 3 episodes, and I think it's definitely one of the more memorable plot lines of the show. You know, I always know that it's coming up. I always enjoy watching these 3 episodes.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's that.
Yeah.
We Two Kings is up next, and in my opinion, takes quite the dip in quality from the previous couple of episodes. Christmas episode, apt for this time of year. We've got it kind of veers plotline wise. It starts off as a competition between Frasier and Niles on who's going to host Christmas. Gertrude's away on a holiday or something, so Niles and Daphne want to host it at their place, and Frasier wants to stick with tradition, which they've had for the last 9 years, and wants to have it at his apartment. So they get into this argument about it, as they do. Martin doesn't want to get involved, but he uses this as an opportunity to pit the two against each other to his own benefit.
Yeah.
Getting them to fetch beer and bring them coffee and stuff. And then it kind of splits off from that plot and turns into Martin working on Christmas Day. He decides that he'd rather work than see the two boys argue. So he decides he's going to work. So then the plot becomes the two of them working together to bring Christmas to Martin at his workplace. Yeah. And I don't know, it does kind of flow together. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But it feels very split.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I see what you mean. Like, I think it would have been better if we had just kind of gotten the setup of, Martin needs to work Christmas Day, and then dive straight into that aspect of the plot where they're trying to plan this elaborate, we're going to have Christmas in Martin's at Martin's work. And that was more of the focus of the episode rather than the first half being something that doesn't really have that much impact on the second half. Beyond just really being a very long setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not that much of a fan of this one.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just really not much to it. You know, we get a funny little scene of Frasier and Niles bringing the Christmas presents in and out. Bit of physical comedy of the two of them carry each other's presents out into the hallway to replace them with the fake ones.
Yeah, and
then they get switched up and they miss them and whatever. And Martin's coming in to interrupt them, and it's kind of classic Frasier farce.
Yeah,
which is nice. And then on Christmas Day, they have this. You know, they come in the morning and they're ready to celebrate, and then Martin reveals that he's not working anymore. And it kind of just throws all the plans out the window, and they all go and stand outside the office block trying to get in.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just feels, it just doesn't have that humour and that joy that you would expect from a Christmas episode. You could replace it with like a birthday dinner or a Thanksgiving dinner, and you'd get the exact same plot.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel very merry, Euan. It's
not very merry.
That's my criticism with it.
Yeah, the B plot's a little bit more merry.
B plot's merry, and actually, yeah, you know what? I think that's what saved it from being a one cupper for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Roz and Santa Claus.
Yeah,
she's got a crush on Santa Claus at the mall. She's fighting off all the other elves as well.
Yeah,
all the younger and
what's her name? Twinkle.
Arguably more attractive.
Well, just younger.
Yeah.
I mean, Roz is at this point supposed to be around 35, maybe coming up on 40.
38.
38
in Kissing Cousin.
Oh, well, there you go. So coming up on 40, whereas the other elf Twinkle looks like she's about 25.
She's like 19.
Even younger. Yeah. Although Roz is more age appropriate for Rick.
Correct.
Because he's a grown man.
And in my humble opinion, more attractive anyway.
Yeah.
Because Perry Gilpin.
Yeah, Perry Gilpin's always very attractive.
Just
so we get the whole thing with Rick, played by Dean Cain.
Dean Cain.
He was Superman. Not long before this, he was Superman in.
He was.
Is it The New Adventures of Lois and Clark that it's called?
Yes.
With
Tia Leone?
No. Duke's daughter. She was in.
It's not Tia Leone. Yeah,
Marie.
It's.
I can't remember her name.
I always get their names.
And she was in Desperate Housewives as well.
Oh man,
I can't remember her name. She's playing Lois Lane, and Dean Cain is playing Superman. Is playing Clark Kent.
That's going to really bug me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What's her name? You keep talking. I'm going to...
But yeah, apparently there's a whole thing with Dean Cain. He has been in a lot of Christmas films, and someone said something about him apparently really liking Christmas. He's like, for some reason, just like big fan of Christmas. So he keeps he's like the love interest in like 10 different Hallmark Christmas movies.
Oh.
And he just, I don't know, just enjoys doing it. Likes Christmas, I guess. Good for him. Yeah. There you go.
It's not Tia Leone.
No, it's not.
I can't remember her name. And that's really annoyed me. What's her name?
You have to Google it.
Does it begin with an M?
No, I don't think so.
I think I'm just thinking of Marie now. Oh, you look it up. That's really going to bug me. Yeah, we took it. I don't know. It does have Christmassy elements in it, but it doesn't make it a Christmas episode. And I think that, it just doesn't have that joy that you would expect from a Christmas episode. It doesn't leave you feeling like the spirit of Christmas has visited you and slapped you in the mouth.
Mm-hmm. Terry Hatcher.
Thank you.
It's fine. So I kind of definitely think this falls in the middle of the Christmas episodes.
The middle?
This is something that we can get into
on a bonus episode,
perhaps on a bonus episode, talking about how we would rank the Christmas episodes.
Possibly, yeah.
It's fine. It's kind of standard for a Christmas episode. It's not great. Roz having a romance with a mall Santa is probably one of the first ideas they came up with in the writer's room for, like, what can we possibly do? They even call back to it in... I say call back to it. They kind of do it again very briefly in High Holidays, the season 11. There's a line when Martin's on a diet and he says, I'm trying to stay away from things that are bad for me. And then Roz sees a guy coming in dressed as Santa and goes like, oh, well, that's where we're different, and goes off with him.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like, clearly they kind of just had the idea of Roz romance with mall Santa on a post-it note somewhere in the writer's room. And then they were like, well, we need to do a Christmas episode. We'll do this. What else can we do? Oh, Frasier and Niles are bickering about where they're going to have Christmas.
This is what I was saying.
And it's like,
this is what I was saying a couple of discs ago, of just like rehashing these old ideas and kind of just taking them and reforming them slightly. And
I don't think it's necessarily poorly done. I don't find it offensive. There are other Christmas episodes that I find really annoying and hard to watch. This one's just kind of uninteresting, and it just falls in the... I would give it a 3.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's bad. I think it's perfectly all right. There are some good jokes in it. It's just unoriginal, and nothing is in it to bring it up any like above average.
That's fair. I gave it a 2. I really don't like the main plot. I think again it is just reused old plot lines. The Frasier and Niles bickering for who's going to host the party.
Yeah.
Martin getting annoyed at them is done before, and then this sort of surprise subversion ending.
Yeah.
I don't think lands.
No, it doesn't.
For me anyway.
It's very sudden, and
the Roz and the Santa things I think is quite cute. Dean Cain's great, and Daphne teasing her about her attraction to Santa Claus.
The whole joke about that she fancies him until it turns out that he's nothing like Santa Claus in real life. He's actually got a kind of a high pitched laugh, and what is it even like? Oh,
he's an accountant.
He can't grow a beard.
And
it's like Roz keeps saying like, like I was kind of picturing him like bigger, and I was picturing him with a beard, and I was picturing him with a really deep laugh, and like that's kind of why she fancied him. It's funny. I think it's kind of nice, the idea that Roz has a bit of a thing for Santa Claus.
Well, he's what is it says? Like he's caring. He's a good husband. He's
gives good presents.
Yeah. What's not to love?
Yeah.
What's not to love about the big red man?
Big Redman.
Okay, that's We Two Kings.
Yeah.
We will perchance go into slightly more detail on our Christmas opinions at a later date. For now, Door Jam.
Yep.
I'm sorry to say, this one disappointed me.
Yeah.
Upon rewatching, this is one that another episode that I always remember. I always remember liking. I always think it's quite funny. Rewatching it, I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, when I saw this episode was coming up, I anticipated not liking it. But I am the same as you, that I remember watching it when I was younger and quite enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's not so much that I went into it thinking I was going to like it and then was disappointed. I kind of knew I wasn't going to like it, but also I used to like it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So, Frasier has acquired, quote unquote,
stolen,
Cam Winston's mail, and he finds an invite for a new place
thing
in Seattle called La Porte d'Argent, which they then discover after sneaking in to be a day spa. Frasier and Niles go to the day spa. They go and have a wonderful day out and enjoy themselves and treat themselves and spend a lot of money on it, until the very end when they discover that there is a higher tier club behind the silver room that they were in, or whatever it's called. I can't remember. Do they just call it gold and silver?
Yeah, I think so.
They do.
They call it like the silver level and the gold level.
Yeah. So there's a gold level club, and then they kind of become fixated on the fact that they're not part of the higher tier, and it's really just frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
It's in that kind of classic Frasier way, that it's just frustrating to watch him be a total muppet and not just appreciate what he's got. They go out of their way to try and find a way in. Roz eventually is their way in. Who knew? Is it
Senator Ogden?
Ogden.
They saw going into the gold level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say Adler. Is there a Senator?
There is a Senator Adler at one point.
Yeah. I can't think.
Although I can't remember when that is.
Yeah. Senator Ogden. Roz, I love the little ambiguity that Roz gives when she says she knew him, and says, what is it when they're it kind of trails off to the end of the segment, but she says like, oh yeah, and I knew him while his marriage was on the rocks. Thank God I knew CPR. And I just love that little ambiguity of why did she have to know CPR?
Yeah.
What were they up to that required it? But I really love that little line.
Mm.
And yeah, so she pulls a favour. Senator Ogden gets them into the gold level. They have another great day out, and the cycle repeats itself when they spot another door at the back of the gold room. And they just become fixated on that for the last few minutes of the episode before they realise that it leads out to the back alley.
Yeah.
And they get locked out in the garbage.
Yeah.
Where they belong.
Yes.
For being rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a cliche at this point.
Yeah.
What they're doing and what the kind of stuff that they become fixated on. And I don't know what my problem is with it exactly, because you establish the characters, you establish their personalities, you know what they're going to be like. We know this is who they are.
Yeah.
But something about this episode just kind of really frustrates me. I think it's the way that they're so quick to write off their enjoyment of a day out
mm-hmm.
in favour of fixating on the fact that there's something better out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just something that I really, really don't enjoy about watching this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not really any B plot either.
No.
Martin and Daphne are watching Rockford?
Yeah, the Rockford Files.
Rockford Files. Not something I've ever watched.
No,
I don't really
it's
know
like
what
a
it's all
detective show, kind of 70s era.
And there's not really much to that. They're watching it and Daphne inadvertently insults him by saying
that he's old.
Saying that he's old,
basically.
Which he is. Which, yeah, he is, but he gets offended by that. And there's not really much to that. So the episode itself just feels very lackluster to me. It doesn't do much for me. There's not a huge amount of humour in it. There's some funny moments when they're getting their treatments and Niles gets wrapped up in like a mummy.
Yeah.
And what it's in, like sort of
rags.
I don't know what
bandages,
it is. Like,
it's
bandages, yeah. And they've got the silly face scrubs on. It's kind of funny, but it's very cheap funny.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel earned, you know? But yeah, there's a couple of good lines with Roz, and I didn't have the heart to give it a 1.
Yeah.
Didn't have the heart to give it a 1, but I did give it a 2, and it's quite a low 2.
Mm-hmm. I had the heart to give it a 1.
Did you?
I give it a 1.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, I really don't enjoy it. It's just like, yeah, like you say, like the plot is just something that we have seen a bunch of times before. Usually it's Frasier just causing problems for himself, but now it's Frasier and Niles, but it's still just sort of generic. We get, like, something that kind of annoys me about it is that we get mentions of Cam Winston, that he was important enough to get into the club, to get into La Porte d'Argent in the first place, but Frasier wasn't. And it would have worked so much better if you had gotten Cam Winston in and made it about their rivalry.
Yeah.
Cam Winston can get in to this new place and Frasier can't, and he's kind of lording it over him, and then Frasier eventually gets in through pulling strings with Roz and Senator Ogden or whatever, and then when he gets in realizes that Cam Winston's in the gold level and he's still only in the silver level, or something like that would have worked so much better.
I think, yeah.
Or
yeah.
Similar, like kind of, I mean, this would be repeating the plot of something like The Club. If you had maybe Niles gets in and Frasier doesn't, or the other way around, and it's about the two of them pitted against each other, that would still be a more generic plot, something that we have seen before. But it would still be a little bit more interesting than just kind of Frasier and Niles together can't get into a club and then they're upset about it for 20 minutes.
I completely agree. No, I think the inclusion of Cam in this episode would have made it so much better.
Yeah.
And like you say, yeah, if it had been a rivalry against him rather than just the two of them against this sort of faceless club,
yeah,
I think that would have worked a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree.
I think the only thing that I particularly like about the episode is, I can't remember when it was we were talking about it before, but in one of our previous episodes, I mentioned that I really like that if someone names something in another language, that it's like a kind of meta joke. And La Porte d'Argent in French means the silver door.
Oh, really?
And that, yeah, I like that. I like when people make little kind of meta jokes like that you kind of pick up on, that it sort of means something else in another language. And yeah.
Like Shay.
Like Shay.
House.
House.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's not really a whole lot to save this episode, to be honest. Even Roz's naughty ambiguity, whilst funny, it isn't enough. It isn't enough at all. And it's a shame, because it's, I kind of, if I'm looking back on an episode fondly, I don't want to come back to it and be too critical on it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's the whole point of what we're doing.
We can't be blind to the faults just because we have nostalgia.
Exactly. Okay, final episode. We have got the Harassed. Indeed. We have got the introduction of Julia Wilcox, played by Felicity Huffman. Mm-hmm. Another Desperate Housewives.
Yeah, that's true. Another Desperate Housewife.
Alumnus.
Alum is singular.
Alum. She is widely regarded, not just by us, but by the greater Frasier community, as being one of the worst side characters in the entire show. Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, it's one that I think a lot of people collectively agree on.
Yes.
No immediate criticism to Felicity Huffman. You know, she does the job correctly.
I have said before that I think it was when I was talking about Diane, that it's actually just as impressive for an actor to make a character unlikable as making a character likable. Yeah. So I'm definitely not a criticism on the part of Felicity Huffman that Julia is such an awful character, because she is supposed to be.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
supposed to see her as an antagonist at this point, at least.
And I think, to be fair, I think that goes pretty much across the board for the vast majority of guest stars or recurring characters, that whenever we criticize them, we're criticizing the character more than the actor.
Yes.
There are odd occasions where that's not the case, but yeah. But yeah, she's pretty insufferable, to be honest. And right off the bat, she is introduced as this rude, dismissive, arrogant competitor almost to Frasier. Mm-hmm. She takes over the last 10, 15 minutes of his show to do like a finance update. Why she was hired in the first place, after apparently writing a book that cost people thousands of pounds, tens of thousands probably. I have no idea, but apparently we're supposed to just roll with it. Mm-hmm. So the first half of the episode is kind of just them getting to grips with their new co-worker, and she is just insufferable. It's really just hard to watch. I just don't enjoy it. It's really just not fun at all. But and then Frasier and Julia get into an argument, and it's almost directly referencing, it is directly referencing the argument that he and Kate got into at the start of season 3. If you remember, they had a bit of antagonism toward each other. They ended up getting into an argument, and then they ended up locking lips. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever used that phrase before out loud.
Locking lips.
They end up kissing and becoming an item. Yeah. So Frasier believes that is the case with Julia as well. So he kind of grabs her and says, are you as turned on as I am right now? And she has this moment of like absolute shock at what he's just said, and then she realizes and is just totally disgusted by it. Mm-hmm. Kenny has, at this point, has already said that she sued the last station that she was at. Yeah.
She was working for someone like, was it CNBC? Yeah. They said.
I can't remember what it was for.
Wrongful termination?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, yeah. I was going to say malpractice, but that's not right. Yeah. So they're kind of, Kenny keeps saying like kid gloves, and then Frasier goes and does this. Classic Frasier. Which leads to possibly the hardest I have laughed at an episode of Frasier in a long time. Mm-hmm. even including the rewatch. Like,
yeah,
it's been a good number of episodes. They have a sexual harassment seminar, the second half of the episode, with guest speaker Van.
Yeah.
This very calm, gentle man with his puppets.
Oh yeah, the puppets. It's a shame we don't see the puppets.
I know. Taking this seminar. We've got all of KCL there. We've got Kenny, we've got Bulldog, we've got Gil, we've got Noel, and they all just nail it. It is just joke after joke, and I absolutely adore the second half of this episode.
Yeah.
It is so funny. Bulldog is probably the highlight for me. When he first walks in and says, "Everyone take a leaflet," and Bulldog like pulls one out of his back pocket and he says, "Don't worry, I got one from the last time I was here." And it's just like, he's such an awful character.
Yeah.
But I love it so much.
He
He's
is very
just
funny.
so funny. When he comes over, I don't think I've ever heard the expression before, but when he comes over to Frasier and he says, "Don't look now, but there's a lady with her high beams on at the coffee table." And even now, I was like, that took me a few seconds to realize what it was he was saying.
Yeah.
And then it hit me and I was like, ugh. But again, like every line of Bulldog's in this whole episode is so well delivered and so funny. His back and forward with Roz when they come up to do the demonstration about how to behave. Bulldog's clearly been through this course so many times that he's memorized exactly what to say.
I really like that about it, and the way that Van says something like, "Oh, how would the two of you like to would you like to role play going through whatever it was, whatever situation?" And Bulldog's like, "Oh well, I would feel very uncomfortable even in role play saying something like that to Roz, but if it would help all of us better understand our behavior." And that does always get a laugh out of me. And it's just the way that he's kind of playing innocent and then also being complete sleaze at the same time.
Yeah, like Roz knows exactly what he's doing.
Van even probably knows that he's a sleaze. Yeah. He's the one that's been there so many times.
But even the other characters like Gil, when he threatens Frasier, he like leans over his seat and like puts his fist into the palm of his hand and like squeezes it around in this sort of faux menacing manner. And then he does a little speech about how he apologizes to all the women in the company that he might have intimidated with his machismo. And then you've got
Gil
Noel
Chesterton isn't about to stop loving the ladies.
You've got Noel as well, when he snitches on Julia.
Yeah.
Julia's sitting on her phone and Van says, like, "Can you pay attention?" And Noel like stands up. And I don't know why it's so funny, but the way he delivers the line, he's like, "Van, she's playing solitaire on her Palm Pilot." And I don't know why. It's just something so funny. Virtually every single line in the second half of this episode absolutely lands, gets such a genuine laugh out of me, and I'm just so sad that it had to be in an episode with Julia. Because I'll be honest, if the whole episode was just the sexual harassment seminar, it would be an easy 5-cupper for me.
Yeah, it is very funny.
Easy. But the rest of the episode brings it down, unfortunately. We'll go with you first. Sorry, I feel like I've taken up a lot of that.
No, not at all.
My love of the...
See, the problem is I'm doubting myself because, like you say, the scene with the seminar is so funny, and there are so many jokes, like even so many more jokes that we've not even talked about that are great. I think Roz constantly heckling Kenny and Van and then just like doubling down whenever they challenge her is so funny. And my immediate instinct was to give it a 1.
Yeah.
Because I was like,
mine too.
Hate
Before
Julia
I watched it
so much. But then the second half, I always forget how funny it is.
Yeah.
Which just makes me laugh even harder when I suddenly get hit with these jokes that are just hilarious. It's like Noel saying that like, I want to go with Roz.
Oh, yes.
And then squares up to Bulldog, puts his hands up, and it's like a boxer. It's so
he looks
funny.
like, you know, the meme of the anteater that's like standing on his hind legs.
He does. He looks like
that's
the
what
anteater.
Noah looks like there.
Yeah. Very, very funny. So I don't think I can give it a 1.
So here was my logic with the episode, right?
Yeah.
First half is a 1.
Yeah.
Second half is a 5. I went right down the middle.
It's a 3. Yeah.
I evened it out with a 3.
That's fair enough. I probably would, because even a 2 feels mean when the second half is so funny.
It's so good. It's so good.
You know what? And there are some bits. There's a little kind of hint of a B plot with Niles having to have his patients round with his house for therapy, because his office is getting
guest
remodeled.
star Paul F. Tompkins.
Yeah.
Very young Paul F. Tompkins.
Yeah.
Almost unrecognizable.
And that's I think that has some good bits. So that's going to be enough for me to settle on a 3 as well.
Good stuff.
It's stuff. But oh man, it was close. Honestly, it was. Yeah. The first half of the episode, they had us in the first half. The first half.
In the first half.
Julia comes in. She's completely insufferable. She's rude to everybody. She does the thing that I always hate seeing. I remember when we were talking about Cassandra, and I said that it was something I hated about Cassandra is that she was mean to Daphne. Mm-hmm. And Julia's the same. Well, she's mean to Roz.
Yeah.
Because she sees Roz as like an assistant.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, go and get my coffee. And it's like, whatever, I don't care. I'm not going to remember your name. You know, go and get my fucking coffee. And then just immediately starts criticizing her and being rude to her. And like, Roz isn't beneath Julia, but even if she was, Julia would be in the wrong for treating her like that. And that immediately made me hate her. And I
do like Roz's little line when Julia comes back, when Roz comes back and Julia takes a sip of the coffee and she's like, ugh, you think that, like, what is it? Oh, what's her line?
She's like, you call this coffee?
You call this coffee? And Roz says, most of it.
Yeah.
Like, what did you do to that coffee? What did you do, Roz? But I do like that. Yeah, no, this episode has so many good lines and so many great moments, especially in that second half, that it outweighs the bad 2-1 for me, like, easily. Yeah. So, in my opinion, it's a even if you look at just the last half of the episode, it's a real highlight to end this disc on.
It is. That's true.
Yeah, it's one of the best scenes of the whole season, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well, another mixed bag.
Very.
Oh, a mixed bag.
Oh God. Excuse me. Very mixed bag.
We've got a few decent episodes coming up, I think.
I can't even think of what we have coming up.
We've got I don't want to give too much away, and I can't remember the names.
Yeah.
Of the episodes. But we've got a couple. I was looking ahead, and next disc has a couple episodes that are really good. The final disc has one that I really love. Mm-hmm. With I was going to say Leonard Bernstein. It's not Leonard Bernstein. What's his name? Leland.
Leland Barton.
Leland Barton.
Or Barton Leland.
Barton Leland.
Which one is it?
Yeah. That episode's this season, and that's such a good episode.
That is a very good episode. Yeah, that's a good one.
But that's towards the end of the season.
We've got the caviar episode is coming up as well.
Yeah, Road to Perdition,
which is quite a good one.
Yep.
Yeah, Fraternal Schwins, the one where they're cycling,
learning to bike. It has its moments. It's not bad.
I don't remember it being bad, but I'm it's a little hesitant. I'm thinking on a rewatch I might like it a lot less.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see, and we'll get to it next week.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for being here and enjoying yet another episode of us rambling about a 30-year-old show.
Have we done highlights?
It's always great fun. We didn't do highlights.
Oh my God,
I was too keen to
wrap up.
Right, go, shoot,
what are
quickly.
Doing as a highlight?
Quickly, come
on.
What's
my highlight is from the beginning of Rooms with a View.
Okay.
When Maris is on the phone with Niles, and he's immediately like, "No, Maris, no, that wasn't the nurse. No, that was my wife. Yes, Daphne. Yes, we got married earlier this year." And then he kind of holds the phone to his chest and looks at the nurse and is like, "Give me the drugs."
Yes.
It's that. That's absolutely my favorite scene here, and just like David Hyde Pierce kind of being a bit loopy on the drugs off the back of that is very funny as well.
It's very good. Yes. No, completely agree.
Yeah.
I was rushing you, but I don't actually know what
I know.
Give mine to. I think it has to be the sexual harassment seminar.
Yeah.
In particular, Bulldog. I think. I was thinking about it earlier, and like he is a sleazy character.
Yeah.
I'm going to go off on a wee bit of a rant here, so just be prepared. Mm-hmm. But there was an article, either this morning I saw or yesterday. It was Mindy Kaling wrote an article, or did an interview or something, and she was complaining about The Office, or not complaining about, but she was complaining about cancel culture, and how if The Office was made nowadays, it would get cancelled so quickly. All the characters would get cancelled so quickly. And I started thinking, that's been on my mind because I saw that and was like, that's so stupid. But I've been thinking about that. And to counter her thing, one, The Office has only been off the air for like 10 years. It's not old at all.
Yeah.
It's still pretty fresh. And two, the characters in it are so very clearly satirical. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in any of their characters, in my opinion, maybe save for like a couple of jokes, that are offensive out with the bounds of those characters.
Yeah.
They very much fit what the character is trying to portray. And I was thinking about other shows more recently, like It's Always Sunny, which I don't think you've watched. Really.
I've seen some of, but
yeah.
I'm not following it now.
Every single character in that is awful.
Oh yeah, that's the point.
Awful human beings. But that's the point. Mm-hmm. That's why it's funny, because we're watching these characters be completely unaware about how awful they are. It's completely satirical. Everyone is aware of the point of the joke. So why would they be cancelled? What would be? Yeah. What would you be cancelling? Like that, they're very much established as not nice people, not good people. That's the whole point of the show. And I was kind of thinking about that, and then when I was watching the episodes, I was comparing that to like Bulldog, where he's very much, in probably a lot of people's eyes, like a cancelable character.
Yeah.
But the whole point is that he is an awful, awful person. Mm-hmm. The whole point is he is a characterization of these like macho jocks who go around and sexual harassment in the workplace.
Yeah.
But it's funny. They're making fun of these people.
Yeah, it's never presented as being like good behavior.
Exactly.
It's the same as I've been rewatching Scrubs, and it's the same as the Todd in Scrubs.
Yes.
Constantly sexually harassing people, but always gets a slap in the face, or gets people making jokes at his expense, or making jokes about like, oh, just because you're constantly making passes at women doesn't mean you're actually getting any.
Yeah.
And that's the point. It's yeah.
So that interview annoyed me, and it was on my mind, and it was particularly on my mind when I was watching someone like Bulldog, because you could very much make the same argument that if you had a character like that these days, people might be upset about how he treats women or how he behaves or whatever. I'm like, well, no, because the whole point is that he is an awful character.
Yeah.
We are watching him be awful. We know he is awful. We know that is not how you're supposed to behave. Mm-hmm. If you don't know that, then you're missing the point.
Yeah. We never really try to redeem him on that. Bulldog is always seen as being in the wrong because of what he does. We never kind of go like, oh, well, he constantly sexually harassed people, but it's okay because X. It's like, it's always that it was wrong.
He is in the wrong for it, yeah.
Anytime we see him more sympathetically, it's always totally unrelated to that.
Yeah.
So
that was my rant. That was totally off on a tangent, but I wanted to get it off my chest. Especially when I'm talking about Bulldog, because I love him. I love Dan Butler so much. I think he's just such a phenomenal character in the show, and a great actor, and yeah, I love him. So yeah, that's my highlight. Bulldog at the sexual harassment seminar.
Yeah.
To be fair, all of them at the sexual harassment seminar.
They're all
that
very
whole
funny.
Scene is just great. Okay, right. Highlights done.
Yep.
In that case, I will say thank you for listening. Have a great day and good mental health. That was the wrong order, wasn't it?
Have a great day, good mental health, and thank you for listening.
Have a great day, good mental health, and thank you for listening. Got it that time.
Yep.
It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
I'll edit it in post.
We'll fix it in post. We'll do it live.
This has been a Happy Brothers podcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HappyBrosPod.
All opinions are our own, and as always, special thanks to Leo O'Donnell for the show's artwork.